Gatto, Gibson, Gomez, Gonzalez, Gordon, Gray, Grove, Hadley, Harper, Hernandez, Holden, Irwin, Jones, Jones Sawyer, Kim, Lackey, Levine, Linder, Lopez, Lowe, Mainshine, Mathis, Mays, McCarty, Medina, Melendez, Mullen, Nazarian, Obernolte, O'Donnell, Olson, Patterson, Perea, Quirk, Rendon, Riley Thomas, Rodriguez, Salas, Santiago, Steinorth, Stone, Thurmond, Ting, Wagner, Waldron, Weber, Wilk, Williams, Wood. Madam Speaker.
Members, we have a quorum. A quorum is present. We ask our guests and visitors in the rear of the chamber and in the gallery to please stand for the prayer. The day's prayer will be offered by our Assembly Chaplain, Father Constantine Papadimos. Father Papadimos.
Good morning. Let us pray. Lord, when we get locked out of our car or our house, it can be very frustrating. Not having our keys can keep us unproductive and even steal our peace and our joy if we let it. In the same way, you, Lord, hold the keys that can open the way for us to walk from death to life. Keep us from feeling stuck, locked out, or defeated, and show us the keys to every blessing you have for us. Amen.
Thank you, Father. We ask our guests and visitors to remain standing and join us for the flag salute. Please join Assembly Member Mays as he leads us in the pledge. Mr. Mays.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
You may be seated. Reading of the previous day's journal.
Assembly Chamber, Sacramento, Wednesday, May 6, 2015. The Assembly met at 7 a.m. The Honorable Audemars Burke, Assembly Member District 6th District Presiding, Chief Clerk E. Dawson Wilson at the desk. Reading Clerk Kathleen M. Lewis reading. The following were placed upon the morning roll call. Ashanji Alejo, Allen, Baker, Bigelow, Bloom, Bonta, Bro,
Mr.
Brown,
Holden
Burke.
moves. Mr. Gallagher seconds that the reading of the previous day's journal be dispensed with. Presentations of petitions, there are none. Introduction and reference of bills will be deferred. Reports of committees will be deemed read, and amendments deemed adopted. Messages from the governor, there are none. Messages from the Senate, there are none. Moving to motions and resolutions, there are no absences today. Staying with motions and resolutions, Mr. Holden, you are recognized for your motion, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request unanimous consent to suspend Assembly Rule 118 and allow Speaker Atkins to have guests and photographers on the floor today.
Without objection, the request is granted.
At the request of the author, please remove the following bill from consent, file item 220, Assembly Bill 1532, to Committee on Local Government.
The clerk will note.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Members, if we could have your attention, we have special guests with us today. Madam Speaker, you are recognized for your guest introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. When there's an emergency, quick action and clear thinking can save lives, especially when it involves getting help by calling 911. So it's important we teach our kids from the earliest stage possible how to use 911 to summon emergency police, fire, and medical services. This week is 911 for Kids Education Week, and all across the country there are events, activities, promoting awareness about how and when to use 911. Today is also 911 Heroes and Dispatchers Day, when we recognize young people who made a difference by calling 911, and also the 911 operators and the dispatchers who tackle this difficult and very important job every single day. Can you imagine what it must be like to be a child and realize that you have to move into action and call 911? And can you imagine the patience and the intelligence of the dispatchers who respond to those calls when a young person in particular is trying to be there for a loved one? So members, I want you to join me in welcoming some California heroes. On May 24th, 2013, 10-year-old Nina Martin was home alone enjoying the start of her summer break here in Assemblymember McCarty's district. A man rang her doorbell a few times. Nina didn't answer the door. The man then walked around the house and through the side gate into their backyard. Nina ran upstairs. She heard the man enter the house and start moving around downstairs. She made 2 calls, to her dad and to 911, and she armed herself with a stick. Good for you, Nina. Dispatchers Julie Catelli and Janie Dabrowski stayed on the line with Nina to keep getting information for the responders and to make sure that Nina stayed safe. After Nina called 911, the man fled and soon was apprehended after jumping fences through several backyards, and no one in the neighborhood was hurt. And on January 4th of this year, 11-year-old Jake Pritchard was hiking with his father and his older brother in Yolo County. While hiking, Jake's father plummeted 140 feet down the edge of a cliff. Jake climbed down the slope, got the cell phone from his father's pocket, and dialed 911. Dispatcher Jennifer Gazelle with the California Highway Patrol in Sacramento handled that call. She worked with her colleagues to pinpoint the GPS signal and notified CHP Air Operations. In Solano County, dispatcher Melissa Kuntz sent an ambulance to the location, and dispatcher Sherry Speakman sent sheriff's deputies to assist in the search. Solano County dispatch trainee Brianna Martinez located Jake's father's Facebook page, identified the trail they were near, and made sure first responders had the location. And then Jake, again, his quick thinking, to use his shirt as a flag to get attention, helped bring the rescue to a successful close. All of those who participated in these calls should be very proud, and all of us here are greatly impressed by your tenacity, your smart thinking under extreme pressure, and what you teach us by those very actions. Also joining us today are Nina and Jake's families, other 911 dispatchers and responders who participated, Elise Kim and Charlie Cullen from 911 for Kids, and a special 911 for Kids ambassador, Heisman Trophy winner Tim Brown, who will be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame in August. We have certificates for all of the honorees, and Senator Mitchell and I have authored this resolution commending 911 for Kids Education Week and 911 Heroes and Dispatchers Day, which I would like to present to 911 for Kids. I want to thank you all for coming and thank you for everything you do and that you are doing to promote the effective use of this vital service. And now I would like to present a resolution on behalf of myself and certainly this assembly to these heroes.
Members, moving to business on the daily file. The second reading, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 1360, 1028, 568 with amendments, 658, 1448 with amendments, 349, 596, 562, 952, 1020, 1535, 1536, 554, 1504 with amendments, 551 with amendments, 359 with amendments, 816 with amendments, 1373 with amendments, 1435, 1443, 1492, 1524, 229, 333, 410, 419, 433, 531, 571, 592, 609, 629, 707, 757, 847, 849, 851, 861, 862, 914, 924, 934, 943, 995, 999, 1023, 1039, 1096, 1108, 1116, 1135, 1194, 1204, 1222, 1277, 1284, 1323, 1387, 1401, 1419, 1420, 1423, 21, 36, 56, 159, 502, 601, 622, 809, 888, 913, 1017, 1050, 1083, 1100, 1144, 1153, 1156, 1157, 1173, 1306, 1390, and 1537.
All bills will be deemed read and amendments deemed adopted. Members, if we could have your attention, we are moving to Assembly third reading. Members, moving to Assembly third reading, starting with file item 85. That's ACR 18. Clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 18 by Assemblymember Gordon relative to Parks Make Life Better Month.
Mr. Gordon, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. ACR 18 would declare the month of July 2015 as Parks Make Life Better Month. This resolution recognizes the importance of access to local parks, trails, open space, and facilities for the health and development of all Californians. Parks are the most diverse collection of natural, cultural, and recreational resources to be found within our state, and they contribute to our quality of life, whether you live in an urban or rural community. We need to raise awareness of the benefits that parks provide as we strive to create a healthier California. I respectfully ask for an aye vote and ask that the first roll be open for co-authors.
See no discussion on this item. Mr. Gordon is asking the first roll be open for co-authors. The clerk will open the roll. The clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. Adding as co-authors, we have 77 co-authors added on ACR 18. Without objection, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The resolution is adopted. File items 86 through 90 pass and retain. Moving to file item 91, that's AB 438. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 438 by Assemblymember David Chu and others, and acting the state government.
Mr. Chu, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, AB 438 would require our state's workers' compensation system to comply with our state's language access law. California has the largest limited English proficient population in the country, nearly 20% of our state's population, almost 7 million residents. In the early 1970s, our legislature passed the Dimely Aleatory Act to ensure that government agencies provide information in relevant languages if a substantial number of the public served by the agency are non-English speaking. However, this law exempted the State Compensation Insurance Fund, and the Division of Workers' Compensation has only been required to provide materials in Spanish. Every year, 500,000 work-related injuries occur. Our workers' compensation system is difficult to navigate, even if you are a native English speaker. It's crucial that any worker who has a serious loss of income or permanent disability due to work injury be able to access the workers' comp system. And with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Seeing no discussion or debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 55, noes 18. Measure passes. Members, we are moving up in the file to file item 114. That's file item 114. AB 404. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 404 by Assemblymember David Chu and others, enacting into community colleges.
Mr. Chu, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, colleagues, AB 404 would allow our community colleges and their stakeholders to evaluate the performance of an accrediting agency. It would require the California Community Colleges Board of Governors, as part of the federal review process of accrediting agencies, to conduct a survey of our colleges to solicit feedback into a report for a federal body that reviews these accrediting agencies. Historically, our community college system has not had a meaningful voice during the review process of an accrediting agency. This significantly impacts our community college system, as we recently witnessed at the City College of San Francisco, where the accrediting agency's decision to revoke accreditation has threatened the forced shutdown of the largest public school in our state. This bill would provide a pathway for meaningful comments for our community college system to provide accountability for the performance of an accrediting agency, and with that, I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chu. Seeing no discussion or debate on this item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 74, no 0. Measure passes. File item 93. That's AB 813 for the purpose of amendment. Clerk will read with amendments.
Assembly Bill 813 with amendments by Assemblymember Gonzalez.
Ms. Gonzalez, you may open on the amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendments codify the prejudice benchmark in order to further ease the concerns of who can qualify for this type of relief. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Ms. Waldron?
We are without objection on the amendments.
Thank you, Ms. Waldron. With that, we may take a voice vote on this item. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. Bill is out to print and back on file. File item 94. That's AJR 7 for the purpose of amendment. Clerk will read with amendments.
Assembly Joint Resolution 7 with amendments by Assemblymember Mathis.
Mr. Mathis, you may open on the amendments.
Mr. Speaker and members, AJR 7 requests Congress to allow benefits from the GI Bill be made available to veterans who as startup capital for businesses. These amendments are technical in nature, and I ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, we can take a voice vote on the amendments. All those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The bill is out to print and back on file. File item 95, AB 51, will pass and retain. And file item 96, AB 461, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 461 by Assemblymember Mullen and others, enacted relating to Medi-Cal.
Mr. Mullen, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 461 would allow the Medicare and Medi-Cal dual eligible developmental disabilities population in San Mateo County to voluntarily enroll in the Coordinated Care Initiative, or CCI. Without this option, these 600 or so individuals will be left without a consolidated health plan to maximize their Medi-Cal and Medicare benefits. The health plan of San Mateo and the local disability rights community work closely together, and both recognize the need for an improved continuum of care through the CCI. This is a county-specific bill with no opposition. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 72, no 0. The measure passes. Let's now go to file item 97, AB 477. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 477 by Assemblymember Mullen, enacted relating to elections.
Mr. Mullen, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 477 will reduce the number of legitimate vote-by-mail ballots that are rejected, ensuring fewer voters are disenfranchised. California has the highest ballot rejection rate in the country, which is especially disconcerting because vote-by-mail ballot use has increased rapidly in recent years, with 60% of voters casting their ballots by mail last November. AB 477 would reduce the number of rejected valid ballots by allowing elections officials to use other signatures in a voter's registration record to verify vote-by-mail envelopes. In addition, AB 477 grants more time for elections officials to collect signatures on ballots that have arrived unsigned, a policy that has been successfully implemented in both Florida and Colorado. With 69,000 ballots thrown out in the 2012 general election, we owe it to voters to improve our vote-by-mail processes. Having the highest ballot rejection rate in the country should be a wake-up call. AB 477 will reduce voter disenfranchisement by ensuring legitimate ballots are counted, and I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll on this item. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 47, noes 27. The measure passes. Colleagues, we're going to pass temporarily items 98 to 104 so we can go to Mr. Mullen's final item. If we can call file item 105, AB 464, the clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 464 by Assemblymember Mullen and others, an act relating to taxation.
Mr. Mullen, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, finally, AB 464 is about local control and flexibility. It gives local voters the ability to raise revenue to fund important public services, including transportation, public safety, and libraries. To do this, AB 464 lifts the cap on district taxes from 2 to 3%. Any local tax increase requiring voter approval, a majority vote for general purpose taxes, and a two-thirds vote for any taxes that would go to special purposes. This bill is crucial because if just one city within a county reaches the cap, then the entire county is precluded having voters raise any additional district taxes, hindering key transportation projects or attempts to enhance public safety. As a result, a flurry of legislation has been signed into law, creating individual cap exceptions across the state. AB 464 reduces the need for this one-off legislation by lifting the cap statewide. Please join me in granting voters the ability to raise sufficient revenue to fund public services locally in California. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll and tally the votes. Ayes 42, noes 26. The measure passes. And with that, colleagues, why don't we go back to file item 98, which we will pass and retain. File item 99, AB 832. The clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 832 by Assemblymember Christina Garcia and others, an act relating to child abuse.
Assemblymember Christina Garcia, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 832 works to correct discriminatory elements of the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act. However, this act treats voluntary heterosexual intercourse differently than it treats non-heterosexual intercourse. The confusing and discriminatory nature of the current law ultimately creates an uneven playing field for all minors, whether they are gay or straight. All this bill does is state that all intercourse should be treated the same, eliminating the double standard we have in code that discriminates against our LGBT youth. AB 832 creates clear, consistent, and non-discriminatory standards for mandated reporters. This bill does not change the law of statutory rape or child abuse. Such cases would still need to be reported. This bill does not expand what is or isn't legal. This bill is consistent with the purpose of the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act, which is to protect children from abuse and neglect and impose mandatory reporting requirements on the individuals whose professions bring them into contact with children. A memo prepared by the University of California, Los Angeles School of Law states that AB 32 furthers the purpose of the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act and the psychological well-being of all children. Simply, AB 832 ensures that our youth are treated fairly and equally. This bill has strong support from Equality California, LA County Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, therapists, and social workers. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Quirk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker and members. AB 832 deals with a very sensitive topic, and it's one we should all really consider. Anyone who has kids knows that there's a lot of things they do before they have intercourse. If they are talking to a counselor, he or she would not have to report if they have intercourse. But in these things that often lead up to intercourse, they do have to report. The judges in our Supreme Court looked at this and said, well, we'll leave it up to the legislature. We are the legislature. We should make the common sense judgment that if you don't have to report intercourse, you shouldn't have to report these other sexual acts. This would allow a better conversation between kids being counseled and their counselors, that they would be able to share that part of their life with them. Remember, this bill passes. If there's any hint of some sort of child abuse, of an abusive relationship, that still has to be reported. What you don't have to report is consensual relationship short of intercourse. This is a common sense bill. I really hope we can pass it. The Supreme Court said if we feel this way, it's our duty to do it. I know for some people this could be a difficult vote, but please vote for this bill. Thank you.
Ms. Eggman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I also rise in support of this very common sense member bill. As somebody who's a licensed clinical social worker, has worked in academia and training other young social workers about how do you work with young people, what is reportable and what is not reportable, this is a huge issue of ambiguity. This does not change the age of consent. This does not change what constitutes child abuse. This just changes what must be reported as a mandated reporter to law officials. It makes no sense whatsoever that consensual intercourse between two kids is okay, but other forms of sexual interaction between two kids, oftentimes same gender children, then must be reported. They go on they can be charged as sexual abusers. They're on a list for the rest of their life. Young people who are just experimenting, and I would challenge everyone sitting in this room to think about activities you may have engaged in under 18, short of intercourse, and think, did that mean that you should be placed on a sexual registry just because it wasn't what is considered traditional? I think not. And I also think that, again, just to help clear this up for other mandated reporters, what needs to be reported, what doesn't, and to clear it up so kids can feel safe to be able to share when they go seek help for something that's troubling them. They should not have to keep secrets from the very people who are there to try to help them work through things. I strongly encourage a yes vote on AB 832.
Mr. Allen, you're recognized.
Members, with all due respect to the author and the speakers that have come before me, I feel compelled to rise up and speak against this bill in the strongest terms possible. This bill will cause confusion, not cure it. The definition of sexual assault in Penal Code 11165.1b, which this bill does not amend, clearly covers sodomy and oral copulation against children, with no qualification that it does not cover the situation where the perpetrator is an adult, ages 18 to 21. Oral copulation or sodomy with a child, particularly when committed by an adult, is both illegal and sexual assault as defined in the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act. This bill will send a mixed and confusing message about the reporting obligations of mandated reporters of child abuse. According to the California District Attorneys Association, we believe that removing these categories from the mandated reporter statute is bad policy. The purpose of the Child Abuse and Neglect Reporting Act is to provide children from abuse and neglect and to do whatever is necessary to prevent psychological harm to the child victim. Removing this category from the Act goes against its very purpose. Members, I can't state to you how sincerely I believe this. Sexual abuse is a horrible crime. It is not something we should be taken lightly. AB 832 is bad policy. It sends a mixed message. It's bad on its face. It's bad in its message. And I strongly urge you to vote no.
Ms. Melendez, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One of the previous speakers said that this was going to be a tough vote, and it should be, because this is a serious bill we're contemplating. This bill is not about sexual orientation. It's not about discrimination. That's not what it's about. This bill would allow a 20-year-old to have sexual relations with a 14-year-old and get a pass. And I don't think that's what you want. You've probably all read in the news recently, as a matter of fact, stories of coaches right? Younger coaches, 18, 19-year-old coaches at school, at high schools, who are having relationships with their athletes. That's what this bill affects. So while I appreciate the intent of the author, this isn't the way to handle it. You cannot vote yes on this bill and give that type of activity a pass. I urge your no vote.
Ms. Grove, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I, too, rise in opposition of this bill. I just pulled the language off, and if you haven't read the language in this bill, just like when we passed certain bills in the past and things were flowered down or watered down on the floor about gender equality and gender identity, this bill specifically states this bill would provide that sexual assault for those purposes does not include voluntary sodomy or copulation or sexual penetration unless the conduct between the person is 21 years of age or older or 16 years of age or under. So you're allowing people that are under 21 to perpetrate that on children who are under 16 years old. And if they don't have you think about that. What child, I mean, maybe every child is mature and every child can make the decision that if they have a relationship with a 20-year-old, it's completely consensual and whatever they do to them is completely okay. But you're making a decision right now to exclude kids under the age of 16 years old, and that is just something that shouldn't be done. And like one of the other previous speakers said, this is a hard vote. But you think about your children, and you think about their ability to be able to go to someone and say, hey, this happened to me, and them not be a mandated reporter on this particular issue. And if you vote for this, that's what you're allowing those mandated reporters to just dismiss. And so I would urge a no vote.
Mr. Gordon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. I want to be very clear. This bill does nothing to change child abuse reporting. Child abuse will still be reported under this bill. What this actually does is provide reporters with more confidence about what needs to be reported. And I believe that at the end of the day, having that degree of confidence for mandated reporters actually will provide greater safety to our teenagers and adolescents. I urge an aye vote.
Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the bill does change what is and is not reportable by changing some definitions. And once the definition of what is reportable changes, some previously reported crimes fall out of it and are no longer reported, and therein lies the problem. The fact of the matter is the statute is not itself unclear. The lack of clarity that the author is trying to fix here is a result of a California appellate court decision that frankly misread the statute as best I can tell. And we are not fixing a statute. What we are doing is codifying a mistaken court opinion. I think that's the wrong way to go. The statutory scheme is clear, and the California District Attorneys Association, the folks that are responsible for prosecuting these crimes, tell us that despite some of the rhetoric we've heard here about various behaviors and experimentation, that's not the target of the law, never has been, certainly hasn't been in the last 25 to 30 years. What the DA's office is asking us to do is to leave in place this reporting requirement so that reports are made, and when the report is made, then the district attorney can decide if in that particular case it's a couple of kids experimenting, at which point the resources of the state aren't going to get involved, or are there elements of some sort of abuse or some sort of exploitation where a prosecution is appropriate. But if you take away the reporting requirement, you take the tool away for the district attorneys to make that evaluation, and if they can't make that evaluation, what you end up having is more unreported, abusive, exploitative situations. That's the problem with this bill. It will allow those to slip under the radar. The problem right now with California law is not that our DAs are throwing experimenting kids in jail. The problem is there are predators out there. and we've got to keep the reporting requirements in place so that our law enforcement folks have the tools they need. For that reason, I'd urge a no vote.
Mr. Lowe, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, members and colleagues. I rise in support of this bill. I had an opportunity to support this and see this in Public Safety Committee, and I think anyone listening to some comments on this floor would be alarmed by some of the rhetoric and narrative, but I just wanted to highlight, in addition to the organizations and support, the American Association of Marriage and Family Therapy, as well as the California Psychological Association. And again, I just want to remind members that this brings consistency to law, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Gallagher.
There's been a lot said on this bill today. I think the critical point here is that mandatory reporting, the whole purpose behind it is to protect children. And so if we're going to err on the side of caution, shouldn't we err on the side of requiring mandatory reporting? And if there is a disparity in how this would be treated, then let's change that to provide for mandatory reporting on all of these things. Because under this bill, what would happen is that someone who's 20 years old, who's engaging in this activity with someone who's 16, 17, 18, and someone becomes aware of that activity, they would not be a mandatory reporter. Even if it's voluntary in those circumstances, where you have someone who's over the age of 18 and someone younger than the age of 18, there could be, abusive relationship there that's not really, it's not very visible at the outset. But by making it a mandatory report, we give people the discretion to decide what to do with that, our DAs, our law enforcement. But ultimately, the whole idea behind mandatory reporting is to protect our kids. And so if we're going to err in any way, we should err in favor of doing more mandatory reporting on these type of situations that affect our children. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Stone, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a parent with two kids in this age range, I rise in strong support of this bill and understand what it really does and doesn't do. It is for children, for young people having relationships between the ages of 20 and 16, not under 16, not over 21. And under current law, if two people have a relationship in that age range and have intercourse, it's not reportable. But if they do have oral sex or anal sex, not what's traditionally described as intercourse, then that would force a counselor either to encourage the youth not to talk about it because they would have to be reported, or report it. This bill facilitates that conversation between the youth and their counselor in such a way that the counselor can then decide if there's abuse actually going on and then report it, because if it is a non-voluntary, non-consensual relationship, they will still be under the obligation to report it. So instead of dragging the DAs into a conversation that's really between a child and their therapist, the mandated reporter, what this bill does is allows those conversations to happen and not interfere. This is an appropriate step. This is a good law, and this recognizes that the queer kids who are engaging in non-traditional intercourse are not going to be fearful of talking to their counselors and the people they need to be talking to in order to find those instances of abuse. So I strongly urge an aye vote.
Seeing and hearing no further debate, Assembly Member Garcia, you may close.
Thank you. I want to make it clear that this is about protecting our kids. As a mandated reporter, we want these kids talking to adults, so that they're making better choices and they're being safer and they're not doing things where they're getting misinformation out there. This allows us to have a conversation. Let me also make this clear that there's been confusion about what this bill does and doesn't do. This bill does not allow a 14-year-old to have sex with a 20-year-old. Penal code doesn't change, and that's not allowed under penal code to begin with. This bill allows us to have a conversation with our children out there and let them know that they could be safe and be in a trusted environment. Mandated reporters are teachers, counselors, psychologists. As a teacher, to protect my license, oftentimes I have to tell two queer boys not to talk to me about them having sex, I have to report them. And that report is not just saying that they're having sex. That report is saying that I have a victim and I have a perpetrator. Now, we talked about coaches or assistant coaches. Under law, I would have to report that because that's someone with undue influence with the minor, and no matter, irrespective of their age, we still need to report that. This bill is not about what is or isn't a crime or what the age group is. This is about a line of conversation that we are already able to have with our heterosexual teens. And we should be able to have that with all our teens. So it's about leveling the playing field so that we can do our job in a better way and we can protect these kids and they can be making better choices. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
This time, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote.